Welcome back to the Unashamed Podcast. My name is John, and today I'm here with a very special guest. Some of you may be familiar with him if you go to Level Up. He's Mr. Hill, and he is the math teacher at Level Up and the Bible and Theology teacher. And I'm very excited to have him on here today. Thank you for coming on here, Mr. Hill.
Thank you for having me, John. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Sean Hill. I am a homeschool father. I have been married for 25 years. I have three children. We reside in uh, the fair city, the metropolis of Marshville. So we have a pretty large uh, um, area out there to move around in. So I've lived in the Charlotte area since 1996. So I'm almost a native here now. So
Yeah, I think you can be considered a native now. Um, So I think like most of the people who are probably gonna listen to it know you as a teacher. And my first two questions for you is why do you teach or what led you to do teaching and what is your favorite aspect of it?
so I would say that in one sense, teaching found me. Really wasn't pursuing that when I was graduating from high school. It kind of was thrust upon me in a sense. I had some guidance from some relatives, some distant relatives who were teachers and educators. And because of their influence, I think they encouraged me to go into teaching. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I think it was uh, just out of the sheer I reality that I didn't know what to do at the time. So
Mhm.
I think I chose it, and then later on, when I went away to college, they had said I had declared to be an education major. So when I just went with that, and um, I think perhaps my relatives saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So that's kind of how I got into teaching. Once I got into it, I enjoyed it. I found that it was refreshing and something that was really up my within my wheelhouse of my abilities and my strengths. So, and God has used that to kind of hone my skills in those areas through the years. Initially, I was one of the reasons I did not want to go into teaching is because I'm actually not very uh, fond of speaking in front of people. That's not a very pleasant thought in my mind. It's just like most people; they don't like communicating in front of groups of people. I'm no exception to that. I don't really prefer that actually, but I prefer to talk to people one on one in smaller groups or whatever. But larger groups are a little bit more intimidating for me. I used to be actually pretty um, deathly afraid of speaking in front of groups. Um, my speech classes were horrible in college, to say the least. So, but I'm here now as a teacher. I've been teaching for over 30 years now. So um, it's been a joy and the delight to be able to teach young people.
That's incredible. I was just talking with some students on the podcast the other day about the steps that they're taking next in life and about the faith they have in God. And it sounds like that God has been faithful to you through your teaching and leading that as a passion in your life. What would
Mhm.
you say is your favorite part of it?
Um, my favorite part of teaching actually is interacting with the students. I like to know them. I like to interact with them about their lives. I like to um, um, have them think. I want them to think about things. I like to engage their thoughts and their minds and thinking beyond what is, I'd say, some things that are kind of obvious and present it to us. I want them to be critical thinkers, and so I try to make them think, even using math and saying, well, sometimes if you think about it, 2 plus 2 should always equal 4. This is not adding up to that. So we might want to rethink what we're the way we're thinking about this and think in a different way. Um, I like to um, I like to engage with them about spiritual things, even in my math classes. I purpose to do that. I mean, that's intentional. I bring up sometimes theological things in my math classes because there's oftentimes there are connections with the things I'm talking about in math, actually. So I will do that.
Can you give us an anecdote about one of those like connections or like a time like when you might have really enjoyed it or it was just the right time to say something?
Yeah, like it's like one of the things we talk about um, we talk about spurious roots in in um, in math, and we're solving certain types of equations. Um, we would call them radical equations. When we have radical equations, sometimes we can end up with what we call spurious roots. And a spurious root is something that looks like a root, but it acts like a root. It does everything like a root, but it's not a true root. So spiritually, we can be that way as well. We can look like a root, we can sound like a root, we can act like a root. But until we test that root, even on a mathematical level, and put it back into that equation, we don't know if it's a true root. And it's how it is with us spiritually. We have to, there's a sense that there should be a true root in us, you know. So I'll use that at times to talk about that, you know, about that whole idea of true saving faith, you know, of someone who possesses those things and not just confesses those things, you know.
Hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about the different classes you teach?
Sure, I teach. Just kind of going through my day. I teach a pre-algebra class. Um, I teach an algebra one, algebra two. I teach um, an advanced math class, which includes trigonometries, some pre-calculus. Um, I also teach a middle school, which some people don't know. I do teach a middle school class on Tuesdays where I teach basic math. It's called Math Foundations. And that is a class that just kind of lays what it sounds like, lays foundations for higher uh, order math. And that class is largely with very basic things. And I try to encourage them in there, even though it's very basic, to be diligent in it because it lays a foundation for everything else that they're going to do following that particular class. I
Hmm.
also have a personal finance class I teach and a Bible class that I teach as well, a Bible and theology class.
Yeah, I really want to dive into that one because all of those other our math classes and even the personal finance is connected into as the math aspect of it. But what leads you to teach a Bible and theology class?
Um, well, I'll tell you how it started. Okay, that
Okay.
might be a better, it might be a better. We'll start there. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, I'm very open about what I believe as far as talking to people. So um, I mean, in a sense where I'm not ashamed of what I believe. I'm convinced of it. Um, I believe that what I believe is the Word of God. He's revealed to us. So I talk to people about it, and various times I bring it to bear in life. And so one year I was contemplating whether or not to return to Level Up. This was back in 2020, maybe 2021, maybe. I can't remember exactly when it was, but the president at that time, Jody Stokes, in order to, when she asked me if I was going to return, she said, "Are you going to return?" I said, "I'm thinking about it." She said, let me throw a bone to you right now to see if you'll come back." She says, "What if we got you a Bible class like that?" And I said, maybe, maybe I would like to do that. So, because of that, I started teaching, you know, through her actually encouragement in those areas right there. So that's kind of how it started. through that particular um, interaction. Um, um, you may not know this, John, but I am a pastor. Um,
I didn't know that.
I am a pastor, yes. I've been a pastor for quite a few years. Um, I don't preach on a regular basis, but I teach fairly regularly at my church, and I teach Bible study. I teach men's groups. Um, so I do teach, quite a bit. I oversee like our children's ministry. So I'm involved a lot with our church. So that's another reason I have a heart for the children there at Level Up. I love them, and I want to see them um, successfully uh, navigate things academically, socially, and spiritually above all. And so that's why I teach Bibles, because um, um, I think I would probably rather just teach Bible if I could, but there's a need for math over there as well. So I'm a tent maker in that sense right there.
Yeah.
So
Um, this seems to really be founded in your confidence and how unashamed you are about your faith, and that is the goal of our podcast to empower young
mhm.
people specifically and to be unashamed of their faith in today's culture climate. And my question for you is where or when did you start becoming unashamed of your faith where didn't care or you were very open with people about it and that has led you to like teaching about it and other stuff?
Sure. It came after I began to be more immersed in the scriptures. When I began to study more, the the conviction came. When I mean by conviction, we use that word sometimes in a bad way, but it really means to be convinced. I became convinced of the truth of God's word, and once I became convinced of it, of the God who has made us for His own glory, and that uh, uh, despite that, we have fallen short of the glory of God, and we now fall under God's judgment because of that, the wrath of God. But God has provided a way for us in Christ Jesus, and um, that is attained through grace, through God's grace and through faith. And so, because of that, if I'm convinced of that, why am I not going to talk about that to other people? If I know that I've been rescued, I've been saved, you say, what are you saved from? Well, we're saved from the wrath of God. If I've been saved from that, and I know there's a wrath that awaits those who do not believe in Christ, why would I not tell them about Christ? Why would I not share those things with them? I mean, if I knew that there was danger uh, around the corner for people, and if if they are not warned about that, they're going to fall prey to that danger. The most loving thing for me to do is not to ignore the danger and not tell them about it, because there will be uh, shaken by my words, but to really just tell them, okay, there's coming a day of judgment from God, but God has provided the way of escape through His Son Jesus Christ. Um, so when I became convinced of that, then I began to share those things. I also became convinced that I can't ultimately save people. That's not, I can't do that. I can't convince people into the kingdom of God on my own. I pray to God. I know God is at work in those things. And so when I know that's not um, ultimately up to me, I became more confident in sharing those things, because I can't I can't save people. I can't change people's hearts. Only the Spirit of God can change people's hearts. And so I rest in that. And when I rest in that, that gives me great confidence to share Christ with people, even a very, sound maybe even educated atheists. I have no problem talking with them about Christ because I know we have the truth, and I may not be able to answer every question that this person has, but I know what I'm telling him is true, and the way he is thinking about what I'm telling him, if he's not laying hold of those things and his thinking is off and he is blinded and uh, unable to see what I have been able to see by the work of the Spirit of God.
That all sounds awesome, and it's incredible to hear you say that and to boldly lay out the gospel in that way. And I think a lot of people need to hear that in today's culture. And that kind of leads me into my next question, because as you're a teacher and you have a passion for kids, teens, and as they're growing up through their school years, you have a passion for them, and you are aware of the different cultures that they have grown up in through the past 30 years. And
Mhm.
what are some dangers that you see in today's culture where they can, or where culture or where society or the world can prey on young people, especially young people who may have grown up in the church, but they haven't owned their faith as much?
Um, I would say, several areas of, I would begin with the whole uh, moral revolution that we've experienced is very prominent. We don't really realize how much it has affected us. Uh, your generation is growing up in a time in which they have always heard about uh, homosexuality and transgenderism and these types of things. That was not talked about during my time when I was growing up and I was your age. That was very rare. It was very hidden and very secretive. But you all have been exposed to it over and over and over again, and this is a part of the the end goal of that is to desensitize you to those things. And so, what your generation has to fight against is being desensitized to these things, of accepting them as okay, of being wed to them, or even being reconciled to those things. That's not what God has called us to do. We're to stand out as lights in the world around us. We're to be different. We are to be not conformed to this world. I would say that would be along with that, not being conformed to this world. Um, we can do that in many different ways, by entertainment, by, again, the sexual revolution. Um, so many different ways we can be kind of squeezed into this world's mold, and we have to avoid that. Your generation has to avoid that, especially because really this is all you all have ever known. You've never known a world where those things were hidden, where they were behind doors. It's all in your face every day. It's on your phones. Another thing I would say is, another way that you got to be careful is that you are you're the first generation also who's walked around with a computer in your pocket all the time and has access to information all the time. And you that information is not always accurate. Okay. It's always not for your good. So your generation has to really fight against being consumed by all the information, of being trained by it. Um, your generation has to fight against uh, being trained by your phones to not be able to endure long conversations or long, um, sermons, where you're being trained right now. Your attention span is being shrunk day by day from where your parents may have been right here. Now yours is down to here, where everything is now a soundbite. You get a lot of people getting their theology from TikTok and from shorts or whatever, and we can't do that. we have to be able to endure sound teaching and long form information. And it's even like things like very basic things like, okay, you know, everything can't be communicated to you in a minute and 30 seconds. There are times when discussion needs to be had. So your generation has a lot of challenges before you because of technology and because of the revolution that has taken place. And it is a revolution that's taken place. So I don't want you all to be deceived. We're all in it right now, but there's a revolution that has taken place in our society, and we got to push back against it.
How would we push back against it? Because in today's culture, many people are canceled or blackmailed on social media because everybody's on there. And if you say one thing that's not does not go with the narrative, you get automatically taken down. So how do you encourage your students or anybody listening to this podcast to engage in a counter revolution against the concerning things that you are talking about?
First of all, you can't be concerned about being canceled. Okay, that's number one. If you're concerned about being canceled, then you've lost it already. That needs to be first. You need to be able to be bold, to be able to, uh, as Jesus says, you know, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. We need to be. I think we need to be more vocal about what we believe. Here's a reality, okay? They're going to tell you what they believe. Why is it wrong for us to tell them what we believe? Um, I say be bold about what you believe, you know, tell people. I'm not saying going around and being obnoxious. I think there's a way to do that. You seize those moments. God gives you those opportunities all the time. Be purposeful. Be purposeful in the friendships you have, and you know, speak truth to those friendships. You know, whether they be with other believers or non-believers. I just think the your generation has to push back against these things by living differently. You live differently, okay? Um, you you don't conform yourself to the world. You should be okay with the what's going to happen down the line. If that means, I can't get into the school I want to, you still got to speak truth, okay? Um, you gotta push back, and not be so comfortable with everything. Everything is. I listened to a podcast some time ago where this pastor was talking about how parents have these helicopter parents and they don't want their children to be hurt in any sort of way, and they keep them from any kind of danger or any kind of hurt and harm. Of course, we want to protect our children, but some things our children need to go through in order to be tougher and made stronger. I think your generation probably is being overprotected to some degree, to the point where um, you could be becoming soft, socially, spiritually. You have no spiritual mettle to be able to endure what may be coming. And we need to be able to have that spiritual mettle and be okay with the, not maybe advancing like we want to, but being held back. And that's okay. Living differently because we are held back. So,
That spiritual metal reminds me of the armor of God. And
yeah.
as we reach the closing of our interview in a few minutes, are there any ways, how do you encourage your students and suggest them to build their armor in today's culture, but also just in not in the relevance of time, like where they can go to the Bible, specific passages, or just ideas and virtues that can help build that armor of God?
I'd say first begin by knowing God. Okay, that's what my Bible class is about. It's about the attributes of God. You have to know who God is. You have to know that God is the creator. He made the things that you see that are going on or happening around us. All those things have been created by God. And so God is the creator of all those things. So he's far more powerful than all the things that are taking place and all the people that are around us. He's far more powerful than those. So we want to begin there. He's the creator. He's a sovereign God too. He's ruling and reigning over the creation. So we don't fret over that. The Proverbs say that like channels of water in the hand of God is the king's heart in the hand in the hand of God. It's Proverbs 22:1. I can't remember or 21:1, I do believe that particular passage, but it has the idea that the king's heart is in the hand of God, and he turns it wherever he wishes. So when you think like that, and you think, okay, even the king's hand is in the hand of God, that gives me confidence in a day like this. And then I would say, love Christ. Okay, obey that first and foremost commandment. Love Christ with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Love him comprehensively with every area of your life. Don't compartmentalize your life. Don't say that I can love Christ with my school or with my work, with my ministry at church, but not here. We don't want to withhold anything from Christ. We love him, I would say, sincerely. We need to love Christ sincerely. That means we don't love Christ at church in one way, and then we have a different way we relate about Christ at work or at school, wherever that may be. We are consistently the same people everywhere we go, and we are people who love Christ. We love Christ, at all times. There's not to be a time when we don't love Christ. It is to be a love that is continuous. And so we're not to lay aside that foremost and greatest commandment. It is the greatest commandment we could ever endure is to love Christ. And we love him with all of our heart. It's to be so expansive. He says all of your heart, not just some of your heart, all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your mind, all of your strength. He's not saying those are different areas that you love Christ. He's just saying everything that you're to love Christ. I think if your generation will, and my generation too, for that matter, would really seek to do that, to love Christ with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, I think we will we see change necessarily? Maybe or maybe not. But I know we'll be a content people. We'll be a thankful people in the world that we live in because we've done the most important thing. We've loved Christ with all that we are. And that's kind of the most important thing that we can do.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. Are there any last words that you would like to leave for your audience, or like a message to students that you would like to, a short, concise message you'd like to give?
Yeah, I've got let me read a verse to you quickly, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna read a passage from the book of Hebrews. If you will, bear with me for a moment. It's the chapter 12. And so this is kind of in the context here, they were under persecution. They were enduring the seizure of their properties. It was kind of close to what you're talking about now. They were being canceled in a sense, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They were being canceled, but in a very more profound way because they were losing their livelihood. They were having their property seized by the authorities. It says here, but Jesus, writer to the Hebrews, encourages them in chapter 12, verse 1. He says, therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So, how do we deal with a world in which we could potentially be canceled? Well, we fix our eyes on Jesus. That's how you deal with those things. You fix your eyes on Jesus, because he tells you, how do you endure such a time as that? Very simply, fixing your eyes on Jesus. And I think that's very good counsel. I think we fix our eyes on Jesus as now, and then we wait expectantly for his return. We know he's going to return, and we live in light of that return, and we live uh, with our candles lit and ready for the return. We wait in an with an expected heart and a frame of mind, knowing that Christ is going to return someday. And if we live like that, we live victorious lives, I do believe.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that, and I really appreciate you coming on today's episode. And I would interview longer, but unfortunately, my free Zoom account is running
I
out of
got you.
time. But
I got one of
thank you
those
so much,
too.
and I'm sure all the students listening will appreciate your words, and please share this to the students in your class.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hill.
You're welcome. Thank you.